Afternoon breakout session titled Connectivity Wars, Dedicated PTP versus Priority LTE, which will be presented by John Takach from Radio 1 and Josh Bohn from Bohn Broadcast Services. John's been chief engineer for Radio 1 in Indianapolis since 2012. He started, and that's John over there. He started in broadcast at MyStar Communications in Indianapolis, cleaning studios on the weekends. Sad thing is you're probably still cleaning studios today, aren't you?
All the time.
After graduating from Ball State University, he became full-time engineer at MyStar. 5 years later, he transitioned to Radio 1 Indy's assistant chief for 2 years, then was promoted to chief at Radio 1 in Cincinnati and corporate director of vertical real estate. Josh has worked in the broadcast industry for nearly 25 years, starting out as a part-time DJ and board op running Penn State football. We won't hold that against you here in Columbus.
At least it's not Alabama.
After graduating from Point Park University, he worked in a variety of technical and engineering positions for Delmarva Broadcasting, Cumulus, Radio 1, and Clear Channel, and served as corporate engineer for Mainline Broadcasting prior to its merger with Alpha Media. Josh is currently president and CEO of Bohn Broadcast Services and Max Connect Wireless. That is a broadcast engineering firm that provides technical and integration services to radio and TV clients around the country. Max Connect Wireless is a subsidiary of Bohn Broadcast and one of our exhibitors today. It provides Priority LTE internet connections for broadcast use for transmitter sites, remotes, and a variety of other purposes. Josh also owns and operates WIEZ in Decatur, Alabama.
1490. It's Troy's old station. So.
Please join me in welcoming John and Josh.
Thank you for buying my station.
You guys, and you're getting recorded, so you can use microphones.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Others up there.
Everybody gets one.
You get a microphone. You get a microphone.
Does yours work?
I don't know.
Hello. Oh,
There we go.
Wow, look at that. Engineering. So, hi. Thanks for having us. Don't hold it against me that I'm from Alabama. So, anyway, to start off, the name is far more creative than the presentation. Basically, I think everyone's figured out that legacy broadcast circuits are going away. ISDN has been on the decline for years. DSLs are starting to be phased out. All the telcos want to move over to fiber or some other non-copper technology because copper is expensive, and no one has any techs that know how to maintain it.
Yeah,
So-
and they want to get rid of them all so they can save money. So they're pushing hard. I know in some of our other markets along the East Coast, just got notices that all of their POT service is getting discontinued in 90 days, I think it was.
Yeah, it's the end of January.
Yeah. So, I mean, be aware it's coming. If you still have a good service, good luck.
Congratulations.
For-
Cincinnati is the only exception to that.
Yeah.
Cincinnati Bell still maintains most of their legacy infrastructure. So, but AT&T has what they're referring to as their 2020 vision. How creative is that in a name? Where basically, yes, they're phasing out POTS lines, legacy copper circuits. If they're not phasing them out, they are increasing the rate to almost confiscatory prices as far as what they're charging for a DSL or a POTS line. What were you paying for one of those? Like $260?
Yeah, $260 for a POTS line with 3 meg DSL at most of my sites. So that's when it's time to look for a new solution.
Yeah. So, and John mentioned the 90-day notice. That's not a lot of time for a broadcaster to try to find another solution for control or access or anything like that. It's just, broadcast companies don't move quickly typically. And also repair times are increasing. The SLA on a T1 used to be 6 hours. Now you're lucky if you can get it fixed in 6 days in most places. So there just aren't techs that know how to work on this stuff anymore. So starting out with our first battle in our connectivity war is the consumer LTE versus prioritized LTE. Your consumer LTE would be a SIM card that you go buy from a Verizon store or an AT&T store that, just, hey, I need a SIM card and a hotspot. Okay, great, here you go, and here's how much it is. So consumer LTE pros. Consumer LTE is cheap. It's easy to purchase. You go to the Verizon store, go to the AT&T store, buy your hotspot, go out, light it up. Hey, look, you've got data. You can check your email, do whatever. Unlimited plans Unlimited's in quotes because we all know what an unlimited plan actually is. But they usually include some kind of a voice service. So you can get that and stick it into a cell phone. It'll have a phone number. You can make a phone call. And then also you can buy it directly from the carrier. So you call Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever. That also allows you to finance your device. So if you're getting a hotspot, you're getting an iPhone, you're getting a Samsung, whatever, they will say, okay, we'll give you this iPhone for free. And then they'll tack on $27 a month for the next 2 years to pay for that free iPhone. My wife fell into that trap. So, that's kind of where it's at. You can finance your device, so there's not a lot of upfront cost. Consumer LTE cons. The big... the dot doesn't work. Okay. The big graphic is your data limit. That's one of the big things is I don't care, and that's not the top bullet point, but that's where I'm going to start. You can very easily go over your data plan. And I was actually talking to a network out of New York on Tuesday. And he said, yeah, we went out and we were doing a broadcast and we had a Verizon SIM and we were using it and everything was good. And apparently we hit our data limit in the middle of the broadcast because the telecast went to black. And I said, what? He said, yeah, it just went to black. I said, what'd you do? He said, well, it was at black for about 20 seconds. And then we were able to feed it with some B-roll and some audio for the next 20 minutes while we found a wired connection and ran a really long network cable over and plugged the camera into it. I'm like, okay, that's awful. So, yeah. But typically, they also don't come with a static IP. Your hardware is often proprietary and locked to that carrier. Contracts are awful. Because their service can degrade, but you're still locked in. You still got to pay that price. And if you want to get out of it, there's typically a buyout. They'll block most, if not all, your ports, even if you get a static IP. And static IPs, if you buy them directly from the carrier, are typically very expensive. In most cases, they're $500 each. You can also be throttled back to nothing based on the network congestion. That was kind of what I was just talking about with the baseball network. They got shut off. That it just happened. And the other thing, this was kind of put in there for emphasis, your broadcast has the same priority as my kid's iPhone. That's, consumer level LTE.
Yeah, so that's for, big situations. Like we go to a concert, I'm from Indianapolis, the 500, when the start of the race, nobody can get any data. I mean, it's just shot. So that's, if you're working in situations like that, you're going to want to look for something else. If you're doing just normal remotes, going to the gas station, doing stuff like that, yeah, you can probably get away with this service for most of the time.
Right. Moving on to the prioritized LTE, which is what Max Connect Wireless is. We've got no data cap throttling. Data caps exist. Data caps exist in every type of LTE service. The unlimited plans will throttle you at 22 gigs or some other number, and they say, data speeds need to decrease to 3G. Well, 3G is 384K. In most cases, you're not going to pass a lot of useful traffic at 384K. Again, static IPs. The prioritized LTE comes with a true static IP on every SIM. It's a public static. There's no port blocking on it. It's essentially the same as getting a fiber connection. It's just over the air. Works in remote areas because of the priority. You take it out to a remote transmitter site. You may have to put some external antennas on your router, kind of like we've got sitting on top of the projector there. But it's been proven in multiple cases, both inside Radio 1 and outside. You can take this out to a transmitter site where your cell phone doesn't work, and you light up a Max Connect, and it'll come up and it'll have plenty of usable signal. We've got multiple stations using these for remote control and audio backups. And
yeah, all of my 6 stations have this. This is my backup for everything.
You've got one using it as a primary.
Yeah, my AM station is actually running. One of those is my primary STL, and it's been 3 months, 4 months.
4, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I haven't had any problems, dropouts, anything to that effect. The other nice part about these, the antennas, you can actually stick Yagi antennas on them. So you can stick, aim at 2 different cell sites. So you're not just tied to one cell site. If one cell site goes down, you're still going to be picked up
Yes.
on the other site. So.
Yeah. I have a site in Birmingham that we're doing that with because one of the sites in Birmingham has a problem with its battery bank, and the site will randomly cycle offline for 12 minutes, which is just enough time for their Cisco routers to reboot. And it completely knocks that site down, and they're running it as a full-time STL. It'll take them off the air for 12 minutes. So we put 2 directional antennas up, one pointed down one side of the mountain, one pointed down the other side of the mountain, and that doesn't happen anymore. So it gives you the ability to have site redundancy. Port forwarding, for RDS, remote control, VPN, whatever you want to do. Something else you can't do with a consumer level LTE connection easily. You can do these things with like DynDNS and stuff like that, but this gives you a native IP address to do it with.
Well, and I'm sure most of everybody's heard about some of the larger companies getting hacked recently, ours being one. It makes it really nice. The IT people love it because if they have a single static IP, they can lock down the firewalls back at the station so there's no intrusion back into your network. They only tell this IP from this device is allowed to come back into your network. So your IT folks will love it. All of ours do. And now we're pushing us to get them, something like this at every site just for the security aspect.
Yeah, we've discussed that with a few other companies as well. So the security that's a major thing because you create your own little connectivity island that can be securely locked down and then VPN back into your main business network. But in the case of an intrusion, you can easily drop that tunnel and you still have access to all your remote controls, your codecs, anything that you have out there.
Yep.
There's no proprietary hardware with the Priority service from Max Connect. You can buy a SIM card, you can get a router, a SIM card, whatever. Comrex loves us, Tyline loves us, all the codec manufacturers, because you can get a SIM card from us and stick it in their modem. So you still get the hardware from them, just get the SIM card, stick it in their modem, and it just works. That's, it works the same as getting a SIM from the carrier, but you have that higher level of priority. Plus the static, which is nice because if you have a codec and you have a remote tech that doesn't really understand what's going on and they say this won't work, you can hit that static IP and reconfigure their codec from your desk. So that saves a lot of time fighting traffic to get to broadcasts, which we've all done many, many times. So multiple carrier options with Prioritized. You can get dual service or soon triple service in one router. So you'll be able to have, early next year, you'll be able to have Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile in one router, and you can aggregate those connections together based on the type of hardware you have to give you the highest possible level of redundancy. So your connection will stay connected. If one of those drops, one of the other ones will be able to pick that up almost instantly, and it will keep whatever you have on the air connected. You're not tied to one carrier. Also, it says add SIP phone for POTS. We offer a service called MaxPhone, which is a managed VoIP solution that if you don't want to have to worry about it, we've already done all the heavy lifting. We send you the box with a phone number attached to it, and we've also massaged the codec to make sure that it will work for your remote controls. We've tested it with all the major broadcast remote controls that are out there, including sign systems, which sign systems don't even work on POTS lines half the time. So, but that is something else that's available with the Prioritized LTE. Prioritized LTE cons, no financing options. You actually have to pay for the devices up front because, again, there's no proprietary device. So you buy it, even if you cancel the service because there's no contract, it's still a device you can use for something else. You can stick a SIM from whoever into it and go from there.
Yeah, you could stick one of the generic SIM cards from Verizon in it and use it that way.
I actually have a customer doing that. They bought a dual modem unit, and they have a Max Connect SIM in one modem, and they have one of their consumer level T-Modem SIMs in the other one. And for most of their remotes, they use the T-Mo SIM. But if they have one where they can't get that to connect, they'll switch over to the AT&T Max Connect SIM and use it. So they're actually using both. They have a low-level plan, but it's enough that it keeps them happy and keeps their broadcasts on the air. Because the T-Mo plan was part of their business share, so it's cheap, and they do a lot of random remotes that would burn a good bit of data because they're using barracks, so it's a higher consumption because they've got to run a higher bit rate. If you're using Comrex or something like that, typically like an AAC 64 will be fine. Barracks, to get broadcast quality on a lot of things, you've got to run 128 or above. So they did it because their consumption on their T-Mobile, they had a 100 gig business share plan with like 7 devices on it or whatever. But if that doesn't work, to make sure it gets on the air, they'll switch over and turn the Max Connect on and use it. And I think they have a 5 gig plan or something like that. So it gives them the benefits of both. So I have one customer doing it. I don't have a lot of people doing it. So, because you got to understand how to log into the router and turn one on and turn the other one off. You do have to purchase the device hardware, and it can be high. It can be a higher cost than what you already have, depending on the plan that you purchase. So, 10 gigs on Verizon is $129. That's about the cost of a basic DSL in a lot of areas. In your case, it was significantly cheaper than what you were paying.
Yeah. About half.
Okay, moving on. Number 2, LTE versus point-to-point versus wireline circuits, which include DSL, cable, and T1s. LTE Pros, not nearly as susceptible to lightning strikes. This applies to consumer or prioritized. There's nothing on the tower, and there's nothing outside underground.
Well, yeah. So like at my sites, I have the Max phone too, which then there's literally no wire connection outside of the building. It's plugged into a UPS, and it's all wireless after that. So
Yeah.
I haven't taken any lightning hits.
Yep. Along the same vein, no backhoe fade.
Yeah.
That actually happened in Cleveland about 6 months ago.
Yep.
There was a crew replacing a water line along the road, and they cut through the fiber and the T1s going into the site. So 2 major stations went completely dead. And they lit up their Max Connect and plugged their IP links into it, and we're back on the air within 20 minutes. And it took almost 2 days for them to get the fiber splice back together. So you don't have to worry about that. Even if they take the fiber down to the tower that you're connected to, it'll connect to wherever the next closest tower is. I mean, if you're out in the middle of the woods and there's one tower, that can cause a problem. But typically, you're within range of multiple, so it will pick up on the next closest tower. Your public internet connection with network isolation. That goes back to what John was talking about for the connectivity
The security
island.
aspect, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they get into one, the nice part about having the separate static IPs is now if they get into your main business network, they can't get to all your sites. They can only get to your business network, because all those other sites, they would have to know every other static IP at every other site and also hack those. So it gives you some redundancy and security by having everything isolated that way.
Don't keep a spreadsheet on your server with all your static
Yeah,
IPs
don't do
on it.
and
That's a bad
passwords.
plan. So again, that's the same thing. The network isolation gives you that additional security aspect. LTE cons, higher cost. You do have monthly fees over point to point. Point to point, you put it up, it's there, and you never have to pay for it again. You've got your data caps if you're on a consumer level device. Your speeds can vary based on network congestion. That's just a fact of how they dynamically allocate the bandwidth on each tower. The prioritized LTE will slow down. It will never choke you completely off, but it will slow down based on higher consumption if there isn't the back end to support it from the carrier. And there's very limited user configuration. You can configure the router. When we send you a router, it's open. But if you get a hotspot from a carrier, you can configure your Wi-Fi name and password, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot you can do or look at on the back end in an LTE setup. Point to point. John, you do a lot more with point to point, so I'll turn this part over to you.
Yeah, no, definitely the big advantage is you're in control of the link. So if something goes wrong with the link, you can put your hands on it and get it back up. Interference issues or anything to that, you have all the control. If licensed, there's licensed, then there's unlicensed stuff, the Ubiquity stuff, MikroTik, some of the cheaper stuff out there. I use a lot of it, unlicensed and indie. Do I have issues? Sometimes. It's easy to move off of it though because you're in control of the link. So it's got spectrum analyzer software built into it, so you can pull it up, see who's interfering with you, and then move to a new frequency. And I can do that in probably 20 minutes. It's not a big deal to do. The if licensed part is all the licensed links. You can buy most of the licensed equipment on Amazon. So anybody can go out and buy it and not license it and put it up.
That's on a future slide.
Yeah. So it'll be, you got to be kind of weary of both sides of it. It does give you a secure private link between the two sites. I mean, it's locked down, password protected on both ends, creates a bridge, to carry your network between sites.
It's a big, long LAN cable.
Yeah. And I mean, you can literally, like the air fibers, Cambium's another one. I mean, I think they're up to like 2 gig, 3 gig, that you can combine the radios. So it gives you plenty of speed. I run my TV stations STL over one of them. That's a 20 meg stream going out there. You can configure the link as needed for the hardware distance. So if you need a dish to shoot 26 miles, you can get a dish to shoot 26 miles. If you're only going a couple blocks, you might only need an antenna the size of a Coke can that you can stick up pretty much anywhere. There's tons and tons of hardware manufacturers. Everybody's making this stuff now. Some of it's better than others.
Yeah.
Nice. Is that on the slide too?
That's on this slide too. No, and it's about halfway down. Plethora of manufacturers to choose from.
That's the downside.
That is. There's who do you know who to buy from? Cambium is a very popular radio manufacturer.
Right.
Ubiquity has become a very popular radio manufacturer. The build quality on those are pretty good. But you can also get on Banggood or Alibaba and buy point-to-point radio equipment. You have no idea what the build quality of that is, what the spectral interference is going to be, but you can bet that there's some janky broadcaster out there that bought their point-to-point gear on Alibaba and it's spewing out crap all over the spectrum and they don't care. So that is one of the possible cons there as far as interference goes.
Yeah.
So another con, you do have rental fees on your tower. And that's, tower rent. And again, you're better at this than I am.
I mean, typically if it's American Tower, they're going to want to charge you probably $300 to $500 to put up a radio on each side. Obviously you're going to have to do structural. If it's not, your tower and you don't do structurals that you should be doing. But yeah, also you're going to have a lot more IT knowledge to get in to configure the radios because there is IP and internet connectivity issues along with the RF part of it also. If you're doing unlicensed, be aware that all the WISPs are out there and they're blanketing all the markets. So what works today might not work tomorrow if you're using unlicensed, especially in the 5 gig. 2.4 is pretty useless unless it's a really, really short hop. Some of the 900 stuff will work depending on what part of the country you're in. And the other big one is that most of these radios come set to hop frequencies. So when you put them on, you put them up, by default, they'll hop the channels that they're allowed to be on, which sounds great, but you'll hop onto somebody else's channel and now you'll have interference. So you'll get random interference issues, and you'll be chasing them down, thinking it's this, thinking it's that, and that's really all it is. So I always tell everybody to lock it down to a specific channel and just, manage that channel. If you start to get interference, just move to a different channel, but don't leave it on the hopping. I think that's...
Lightning strikes.
Oh, yes.
If you look at the picture,
Yes.
you can see what lightning strikes will do to point-to-point radios.
Yeah.
Proper grounding is a must.
Yeah, because it's basically a Cat5 cable going up to the radio itself in most cases.
It's become more common to have them with the licensed links. The fiber interfaces have become more common, but you've still got a 2-pair power wire running up there. Now, chances are the only thing that's going to blow up is your power supply on the ground. You replace it, and it goes back to working again.
Right.
But I have seen it where it's fried the radio to a crisp, and you're waiting for a tower crew to come and pull it down. If that's your only link, what do you do?
Right.
So, and again, rain and fog fade at higher frequencies. That was something that gig link knows that when the fog rolls in, your 18 gig link gets pretty useless. I don't care if it's going 2 miles or 10 miles. Anything above 11 is going to be very susceptible to rain and fog fade. Unlicensed versus licensed. We've already covered some of this. But one of the big unlicensed pros is the fact that the low cost of equipment versus the speed. The little graphic at the bottom shows a pair of Ubiquiti 5 gig rockets with dishes for $699 that you can buy on Amazon today, and they'll be on your door in 2 days with Amazon Prime.
Yeah. And
So
that'll give you like a 500 meg link for $700.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's ridiculous, the prices. I think the one system we first put in probably 10 years ago, I think it was Redline, and we paid $60,000 for it.
the Motorola's were 38. I
Yeah,
remember
and
that.
it was basically the equivalent of a T1 line. You
Yes.
know, and
Yep.
it's crazy what's happened in the last 10 years. Yeah, they're like I was also saying, they're very easy to obtain. The initial configuration on some of the lower end stuff, the Ubiquiti stuff, is made for consumers, so it's pretty easy to get it up and running. I mean, the directions are pretty. It's basically the equivalent of setting up a Wi-Fi access point. I mean, that's basically what you're doing, and it's really not that difficult. You don't have to pay the license fees for licensed links. A lot of times when you get licensed radio, you got to get consultants involved to file it for you if you can't do it yourself. It does have the spectrum hopping capabilities, which I've kind of outlined as a big negative and downside to it. I think that's it. Yep. The cons, lots of interference issues. And you have no recourse. So you just spent all this money, put it up on the tower, did the structural, did everything right, and you get it up there, and now you have interference, a month later. You have to go back to your GM and go, sorry,
Too bad for you.
we should have bought the licensed one, and you didn't want to spend the money. But, that usually is typically in downtown locations. If you're out shooting out, pretty far, outside of the town, you'll be fine going out. Your link coming back a lot of times will have the interference.
Yep.
So, you just kind of have to watch it, based on where you're trying to use them.
John mentioned that 2.4 is pretty useless because, again, just an example of some of the stuff that's in there. Your cordless phones, for those of us that still have POTS lines, your microwave oven, that's actually what that is. Your microwave oven operates in the 2.4 gig band. Wi-Fi, pretty much all the Wi-Fi is 2.4. Wireless mics, you can see the picture of the janky Chinese wireless mic from Alibaba's website up there at the top. And plus a plethora of other things. That's 2.4 was the popular band to build little unlicensed devices in. And you can see the graphic at the bottom also shows that's all the hash. That's an actual spectrograph of the 2.4 gig band. And you can see the mess up at minus 40 that's actually coming from somebody's leaky microwave or radar range.
Right.
So, and again, build quality varies widely. Again, it comes back to where'd you buy your radio? Did you get it from reputable manufacturer? There we go.
Yeah.
Or did you get it from some janky Chinese website for $29?
Yeah.
Licensed pros.
Yeah.
There are lots. These aren't very many. There are lots.
Yeah. So, you obviously get the dedicated channel. You're going to get the higher capacity in most cases, and they can engineer it to do pretty much anything you need it to do. If you go with like a Cambium, or a higher end manufacturer. Equipment quality, I said that. License link, reliability and less interference issues.
You will typically get support with a licensed link as well, as opposed to Ubiquiti where you just buy it and
You have
it's
to go
the
on their
wild, wild
website
west.
and hope somebody answers your question.
Right.
Yeah.
You buy a Cambium link from Double Radius or whomever, you're going to be able to get support for that link to set it up. Hey, I had a problem with fiber interface. Okay, we'll get you another one, whatever. It's like buying any other quality piece of equipment.
Yeah, and they'll come out and do the install and bring,
Right.
guys that set it up for you, show you how it works.
It's more of a turnkey than a do-it-yourself kind of thing.
Right.
So, and again, the other part of this is, you see the Axia and Wheatstone on there. Licensed links, I know people who have run Axia and WheatNet across unlicensed links. But again, you start getting interference, you're going to end up with weird problems, audio anomalies, dropouts, sync errors, things like that. Whereas with a licensed link, that becomes far less of a problem.
Yeah, just as an example, in Cleveland, where I was just at yesterday, we had blades at each of the sites, And then we were running those over Cambium links, and it works fine. I mean, we were sending
Yeah.
3 stations audio out to one site, and it works fine.
Licensed cons, you do have a higher equipment cost. I showed you $699 for a pair of 5 gig links versus 30 grand plus for a set of Cambium licensed radios.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. You do have your licensing fees and consulting fees. It's just like applying for an STL or anything else. You've got to get it coordinated. You've got to apply for the license. You've got to go through all the paperwork, so you will have fees with that. And as John mentioned, there's still no guarantee that someone won't light up on your channel because you can buy Cambium links on Amazon.
Well, and the other problem is a lot of the cell guys are using these licensed links, but I'm not sure they're always licensing them. They come out, throw them up, put them on, and let somebody else worry about that later, and nobody really checked the path.
Diplexed versus dedicated. Diplexed is typically what some of the first generation stuff was whenever you would shove a Ubiquiti Bullet 900 into your STL antenna.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what the LAN link was. You can actually take the LAN link combiner and shove a Ubiquiti 900 meg radio into it. And instead of getting 1 meg, 1.5 meg, you'll get 5 to 6 meg.
Right.
Instantly.
And that's the picture on the screen is the LAN link and the combiner out of the LAN link.
There you go.
Much lower installation cost. It's all inside. You've already got the antenna up. It's essentially diplexing the ISM band, which is around 908, into your 950 antenna. So the throughput is lower because you're going into an antenna that isn't optimized for that. Plus the radios are slower because of the lower frequency. But you can get them on pretty quick.
Yeah. You just screw in a couple connections and you're done. And and if you're just needed for basic data control, even if you had to run one station's audio, over a codec, you could probably get away with it. And if you have a LAN link now, then this is pretty much a no-brainer. You can buy, I think you need Ubiquiti 900 meg radio for $110. Throw it in there.
Yep.
And you're done.
Diplexed cons, it is significantly slower than any of the other options. So John mentioned, 5 to 6 megs on a good quality link. If you've got a long shot, I had one that was 11 miles, and we were getting about 1.5 meg each way.
Yeah.
That was the equivalent of what the old LAN link was.
Right.
So you go much further than that, it becomes unusable. For short hops, it seems to work fine.
Yeah.
So it's also unlicensed. That's the other part of this. It's down in the ISM band, which is another wild, wild west frequency that people turn stuff on down there all the time. A lot of medical devices live in that band. The reliability can vary based on the modulation of the other carrier. If you set your Starlink to QPSK and then you try to run a LAN link on it, it's going to destroy that LAN link.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And then, it's typically not a good choice for audio delivery.
Which is, goes back to what you're saying. It really depends on what the distance of your shot is. You put it up, you might only get 1.5. On the high side, you're going to get 6. It's probably going to end up somewhere in the 3 range for throughput.
And that's enough to do a basic connection, but there's not usually enough overhead there to maintain the bit error rate at where it needs to be so that you don't have dropouts and blips and blurps.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the basics of that. This is a little recap of what the MaxConnect wireless stuff is. Data on MaxConnect is pooled. We'll give you an aggregate data cap if you go with same tier data plans. It is a higher class of service. You do get priority on the cellular network. It is not any kind of voodoo that we do in the hardware or anything like that. It's actually prioritized at the carrier level. Static IP address with every modem and SIM. We use typically cradle point routers. We also use stuff from PepWave, or you can just get a SIM from us and shove it in your device. There's no hardware requirement from us. No port blocking, no throttling, not really any restrictions on what you can do. We are VPN capable. We have a couple of different clients that are using the VPN client in the cradle points to tie back to a Cisco or a Sonic wall. And we can deal with external antennas, omnidirectional or directional, so that you can get service almost anywhere. If you need a POTS line, we do still have MaxPhone. That is our managed VoIP solution that I mentioned earlier. It's $18 a month. So, if you're paying $100 for a POTS line, you get a MaxConnect and a Max phone on there, you're looking at less than $150 to get data and a phone connection that will work with your remote control. And it allows you to eliminate your copper lines. So, any questions? Wow, this is exciting.
I'll throw this out. I can always speak. I came a little late. I had lots of good sessions going on today. It's also neat to mention to everyone, because I'm sure you guys are familiar, there are resources online, what they've spoken of today. Yeah. So there are resources online that they've spoken of today where you can plot your shot ahead of time. You can tell the terrain that might be an obstacle. It's really helpful stuff. I haven't been as bold as these two, or at least yourself, because I'm a little chicken that I am going to have that interference, but one day I will do it. But
Yeah.
Great presentation. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, just an example. I've got six Ubiquiti links in Indianapolis, all unlicensed. I only have interference when I think they're doing stuff at the 500 because it's right in line with my shot. I maybe twice a year have to shift frequencies just slightly, and I'm good for another 6 months. So.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with your distributed, what you call it, Ubiquiti?
Oh, okay. So yeah. So the other thing, which is kind of cool, so you can actually take the Ubiquiti radios and you can actually create a ring. So like if you have multiple sites, I'll shoot out from my primary location and I'll shoot to my AM site, I'll shoot to my FM site. Well, I actually take a third radio and I shoot from my AM back over to my FM. So if any one link goes down, I still have a path both ways to get to whatever I need to get to. And the cost of these radios is so cheap. I mean, it's not prohibitive in cost. I'm more the go-getter that will do the unlicensed. Most of our other engineers are like, no, I have to have license, and I'm like, no, you'll be fine. But there are issues, especially the larger cities, the Phillies and, East Coast. It just won't work. I mean, we've tried it. It just won't work. So in those cases, yeah, you're going to have to spend the money to get, a licensed link. But once you do, there's only one or two markets. I think Atlanta right now is having some issues with a licensed link. But yeah, they seem to be pretty stable, and like I said, I'm using it as my primary TV STL. So, which is way more than, radio people are going to be shoving across one of those links.
We're about to do the same thing in Birmingham with the ring, with using unlicensed as well. It's not going to be as complex as yours, but we're going from a studio to a hop and then to an FM, from the FM back to the AM and the AM back to the studio. And that was done specifically in case the hop goes down, because we don't have a lot of control over that site. But that was done because there's no line of sight from the studio to the FM, but we wanted to go that way first. So that link's already installed. Now we're doing the FM to the AM and the AM to the studio. So if any of those go down, we'll be able to still get to the rest of the sites.
Yeah, and I know another thing, like if you get into convention centers, I mean, don't just think that these for STLs. If you need a link and you got to shoot across the convention center, you can get some of these radios, some of these Ubiquiti, they're literally the size of a Coke can. And you can shoot your own internet through the whole building, and have your own network to all your spots or wherever you're located. You can also do it if you go to a large venue, you can make your own private network there. They make sector panel antennas also. So you can almost make it like an old school Marty, except you're using a link. So like at one of my sites, I have panel antennas up there. I can take another access point radio, and as long as I can see the top of that building, I've got a full 500 meg connection straight back to the studio. So, I mean, there's lots of uses. I think some of the TV guys in Indy from the 500 have been starting to shoot back, to their sites to get video back to the station, and it works. I mean, it works, and you can pretty much move it anywhere you need to.
Mark, do you have anything else?
Did you?
Do you have anything else? Okay. Anybody else have any questions, concerns? Anybody want to throw any strawberries at us or anything like that?
Have you tried to do link aggregation between multiple radios to the same site?
Yeah, so you can't. So like Ubiquiti you can take the Rocket, which was the box that had little connectorized ports on it. They make a device. You can shove 4 of the radios into one link, into one antenna, and get. I'm pretty sure I read the other day it was like 4 gig throughput to the site. So which is pretty incredible for the price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 4 gig. Yeah. I don't know what else you would need. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do that. I mean, in Indy, we use wide orbit as our automation, and I keep a backup over one of the links out at the site. So yeah, it does work.
Yes, sir.
What kind of setup provisions are there in the software where you can keep somebody from taking over your link?
You mean?
Audio or their own control?
So it's all password protected. Please make sure you change the password, because I can't tell you how many Ubiquiti radios I can find, because literally it's got a scan tool and it'll find every Ubiquiti device it sees, and you're just like, well, let's just see UBNT. Yep, I'm
Yep.
in. You know,
Yep.
so
Can you check a box for them to recognize each other so that,
yeah, you can lock it by MAC address on both ends. Yeah, yep. So yes, yeah, But yeah, one device can also see multiple other devices too. So if you've got 2 shots that are kind of along the same path, you might only need one antenna here, and you can put 2 back to it. But yeah, you can lock them by MAC.
somebody could take over?
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely.
We've seen that.
Yeah, yeah. And you can hide the SSID that it shows up with, so it doesn't show up.
Or it'll show up as unknown.
Right,
So you have no information on how to try to get into it.
right.
So,
Yep.
but anything else? Okay.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Yeah.